Hey, everybody, it's Dan O'Connor again with Marty O'Connor. Thanks for joining us today, Mart.
My pleasure.
Can you hear me all right?
What?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Today we're going to be talking about our new course. It is the things that you will learn in the new course. So if you have questions about this type of issue or any issue at all.
Question. What's the name? What's the name? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Sorry, the new course is called the Professional Communicator's Self-Defense Toolkit.
And when you say new course, tell me what you mean by that. Like new online
it's
course?
Is that what it is? Done before.
Yeah.
And it's all about, it is all about giving people the tools that they need to find their voice and stand up for themselves at work and take their power back from the toxic people that we give it to when we give away our power. So it's a tutorial, and it's different from a class in the sense that I'm going to be running through the tools that I'll be giving people, telling them how to use it, giving them examples, and moving along. So it's not a really long course. It's going to be a few hours. It's based basically off of another course that I just did that's called the Secrets to Professional Modern Communication, which was a big hit because it was just wham, bam, wham, bam. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. Here's how you say this. And you can go practice it at home. So that's what it's going to be like.
Okay. And honestly, this isn't, but I just haven't talked to you in a while. So before we really dig into it, it sounds like some tactical communication.
It is.
I mean, is that right? Like that's kind of what we're talking about, which is cool. I mean, that's old school. I like it with you. I like tactics.
It's all about freestyle scripts, which means it's a frame to get the words out of your mouth or from your head out of your mouth. Lead-in lines, closing lines, navigational phrases, step-by-step tactics, verbal patterns. It's really based on language skills, and a lot of people unfortunately think that when they need to improve their communication skills, what that is to them is like a soft skills thing. And so they'll go to webinars or they'll go to different courses where unfortunately, there's somebody up in the front of the room wearing a corduroy jacket with, pads on their elbows, telling them about a bunch of theory that's not even true. And that, 5% of the message is the words and 7% is the tone and 180% is the body language, which is the Moravian myth. And it's most communication courses that I've ever been to, and it's my job to go to all of them that I possibly can, are horrendous. And they are, they are colossal wastes of time. And they kind of make me want to rip my face off and throw it at the instructor for having to witness, that horrible thing. So mine tend to be very different. And what I focus on is giving the words. So that's what it's going to be doing.
Hey, let's take a second. I'm going to put some folks up that have joined.
Hey, folks.
That are saying hi. I'm going to put
hi, guys.
You may know even a few of these, like right here.
I shared everywhere. This will be a great live stream. Oh, great. Thank you very much. Elite Therapy and Life Coaching Services. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, okay. Yes.
Anyone else that I should be shouting out to?
Here's Justin.
Hey, Justin Elliott.
Jennifer saying need it when talking about your new program.
Hey, Jennifer. Okay, so while we are getting the shout outs, I want to make sure that people who are just tuning in get some content. And the biggest thing I believe that most people are missing, and this is for everybody, no matter what your communication challenge is, if your challenge is you aren't finding the right words when you need them, remember that it is not a video that you're going to find it in. It's not a book. It's not an audio, because these are language skills. Even if you're talking about visual communication, where you're talking about body language, or if you're talking about props that we're using or whatever they are, that's all language skills. And it's a lot of people, unfortunately, just approach it the wrong way. They want to read a book, or they want to go to a webinar or a seminar. And it's like if you were to go to China and so you wanted to learn Chinese, you would not buy a book on Chinese and then go to China and think that you could speak it. So the process, Marty, people in Mexico, these kids, there are a lot of kids in Mexico who speak fluent English. And when you ask them, where did they learn it? And they sound awesome. I mean, they can speak it just as if it was their native tongue. What's the most common thing that they say when you say to somebody who sounds like they're almost native, where did you learn your English? It's so good. What do they tend to say? Do you not know?
TV.
That is it. They watch TV, and
TV.
what do they do is they watch TV.
They repeat it, they listen to it, they're listening to the cadence, they're, listening to all of those things.
And they write it down. I don't know if you know that, but I always ask people those types of questions. And the common link in young people who just speak it and never took a class ever is they will listen to the radio, whatever. Well, they'll listen to the music of the day, and they'll watch. What I have found to be particularly popular is Friends, because that, I guess, is a show where they speak in a lot of colloquialisms and a lot of language that's very typical, and their accents are good. And so they will watch those shows, and they'll listen to the music, and they'll write it all down, even though they don't know what they're writing down. And then they'll read it. And in the process of doing that, you speak it, hear it, read it, and write it. And that's how you improve your language skills, so that when you need it, you can whip it out. So just for no matter what you want to learn, I see a lot of people struggle with language skills, and especially people who are on the spectrum or people who are really introverted. They're not practicing. And so they get to where they need their language skills, and it's as if you're finally in China and it's your time to speak. And so you think you're just going to remember what you read in that book. So don't do that. And if you use all of the things I just talked about, read it, write it, speak it, hear it, and keep practicing the language patterns that you want to start using, you will be just miles ahead of most people who are just reading books and thinking that they're going to somehow implement these abstract theories that are really a waste of time for most people.
Well, you know what it reminds me of, because you and I have different skill sets, obviously. But even when I hear the word skill, it reminds me a little bit of, say, Muhammad Ali, right? Like if you try to read,
it reminds me of Muhammad Ali.
Well, if you try to read about boxing, that's one thing. But if you don't have the context of trying to jab, which is the skill that you're trying, like if you want to learn boxing, you're not going to continue to read a book about boxing. You have to eventually start to practice it, and you have to start to practice the fundamentals. And so you have to start with your jab and your cross and your hook and and all these other things until you start to put it together, right?
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that I see, I used to go to a mixed martial arts gym, for decades. But one of the things that a lot of folks do is
go ahead.
Fair enough. And so, but one of the things that a lot of folks actually did do is after class would write in a book, write their own journal, right? Yeah. So I mean, I think what they were doing is they were talking about developing their own skills. And so so let's a couple more shout outs before.
Oh, by the way, in terms of sponsors, Marty, have you seen that?
Yeah.
That
let's say hi to Kenny quick. We've got him up here.
Hey Kenny, hey Kenny, hey Kenny, Arbieto. Has Marty or anybody else here ever used that boxing bag that you put in a doorway, and it's like it's anchored with 4 straps, and you can sit there and do that forever? Have you ever heard of that?
No, probably because it doesn't sound any good.
Well, I think we should get a sponsor to give us one.
Or maybe just a real speed bag. Okay, let's continue on here now. So, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Okay, Brianna.
So let's become more articulate and assertive. Yes, that's correct. And by the way, Brianna, speaking of being more articulate, I was just, forget it. I'm coming up with a brand new exercise for people who do not feel as though they can speak quickly and articulate when it comes time for them to do that. That's not ever a requirement, but some people want to raise their pace of how they speak, but they're not really quick with words. And so I'm coming up with a new product that I think will help with that. I hope.
Well, that's funny that you should mention that, because as we continue on, saying hi to Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. From Spring Hill.
Yeah, Jennifer. And she's really hoping that you don't rip your face off.
Thank you, Jennifer. I don't go to those courses anymore since, COVID.
Well, however, though, Jennifer, our other friend here, says, my issue is processing what I want to say. Is that a thing? And I think you literally I think you were just talking about it. So maybe you could just spend a few minutes. Is that covered? Is that covered in?
I think so. If Jennifer, tell me if I'm getting this correct, if I'm understanding this correctly. When you say processing what you want to say in the moment, is it that you get emotionally charged, and so things just start to go wacko, and it's difficult to make to clarify your thoughts. Therefore, you're doomed in terms of clarifying your words. And so it tends to get the more we are upset, the more unclear things become and jumbled, and you can't process things because you have so many things going on. Is that what you're talking about? If so, let me know, because that is really easily addressed. If you have, for example, if it's a recurring thing as it appears to be for you, what you want to use are visual cues. And it may sound almost too simple, but Marty likes to sing Christmas songs all year long. I mean, he's always singing. It's like it's always on the radio. And so when you, for example, learn songs and they're your favorite songs that you run around the house singing and singing and singing and singing.
I'm going to put a reply up while you talk too.
What?
I'm going to put her reply up to your question as you continue to talk.
Okay. Even in a stressful moment, you can still sing a song that you know because you've done it so many times. Just like a soldier has to practice taking apart her or his gun over and over and over and over again and putting it back together, because if they are ever in a situation in which they need to take apart their gun or fix it, they can't stop and think about it, because then that increases the likelihood that they're going to be injured or die. So they practice it over and over and over and over and over again so that it becomes automatic. And like Marty, if I were to ask you, think quick, Mart, what goes on a Big Mac?
What? I didn't get the question. Say it again.
What goes on a Big Mac?
Oh, to all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Right. Now,
and actually, and I'll be honest, I didn't know you were going to ask me that question.
You don't anybody who's 50 years old or more and lived in the United States their whole life would know what goes on a Big Mac. 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun. People Eamon's age would be like, what are you talking about? But 40 years ago, there was that commercial for McDonald's, right?
Right.
And
right.
It was just drilled. If I were to say to anybody who's 50 years old, and if you are not 50 years old, try this. Ask people that who are 50 when they're, angry or emotionally charged, say, hey, what goes on a Big Mac? And they'll be able to say, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. Or if you were to say, what comes after plop, plop, fizz, fizz? What comes after that, Mart?
Oh, what a relief it is.
Oh, what a relief it is. So these are things that most people have not thought of or heard for 40 years, but you can still just whip them out if you needed to, because we made them automatic that many years ago. So it's the same thing. If you are not able to process things, if that's what you're talking about, then...
Well, if you see here, look, if you see, she's saying she blanks out because of being belittled. So I think what's going on is she's reacting, right? She's reacting to what's happening. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's it. I'm Jennifer, even if, I don't know how old you are, but even if somebody were to slap you in the face, or just insult you in the worst way and it'd be very personal, even through tears, we could say, if you were born 50 years ago, you could say, yeah, well, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. You could say, well, 12 beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. The reason I'm saying that is because if you take the time using the right tools to practice over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, have your visual cues available throughout the day so that when you have time, if you're on the phone, for example, I don't know what your job is, but if you're on the phone a lot, many times while we are on the phone, there's lots of spare time. I've done a lot of work in phone banks. You have moments where you're not doing anything. You can look right at a cue card that you may have in front of you that I use to this day, that you would read it and practice saying it in your mind. You'd mouth it. You would use it as many times as you can with no risk situations. For example, if somebody's belittling you, I'm just throwing this one example out there. I'm not saying this is your solution, but I like to use the when you, I feel because as a response to many different types of hurtful things that people will say to me. And the when you, I feel because is a real simple process that usually people spend thousands of dollars to learn in relationship counseling, where you tell somebody, when you engage in this behavior, I feel this way because XYZ, which is 100% different from what most people say. Now, if you ask the average person, if you're to tell the average person, the next time somebody insults you or the next time your husband makes fun of you in front of your friends, give him an when you, I feel because. Most people will say that I've already done that. I do that all the time. And they might believe that. But over 50% of the time, human beings think we are saying something other than what we are saying. And we're all guilty of that. If you are engaging in tactical communication and you are deliberate and you're consciously communicating, which is the opposite from what we do most of the time, you'll be more likely to hit your mark and use the when you, I feel, because if you're not using a strategy, what tends to come out is something like, when you say that makes me so angry. And I don't want to say that makes me or you makes me, because that raises self-talk. And the other person will say to themselves things like, I don't make you anything. They'll start talking in their brain the more I'm off mark. But if I were to say, when you call me a name like that in front of my coworkers, like let's say that's the behavior that's going on that's making you feel belittled. You don't want to say, you make me feel belittled. You want to say, I feel, and be honest. Like in that moment, express your feelings. I feel frustrated and belittled and humiliated, because that's easy to say if that's how you feel. And then you give a
invalidated.
What?
And invalidated, as she said.
Invalidated, right. I feel so invalidated and humiliated because I talk to you in a respectful way and don't know why you don't return that to me. Or like if it's my spouse, when you call me a name like that in front of our friends, I feel hurt and let down because I love you and don't talk to you that way. Or if, I'm on a plane ride with my mother, Mom, when you insult me like that in front of other people, I feel angry and humiliated because it reminds me of when I was name called on the playground as a child. And watch, you say that to your parents, they'll be like, why didn't she ever tell me that? And you could say, Mom, I've told you that a million times. And here's what you'll get. If you are really clear with your when you, I feel because, for example, your boss, when you do that to me in front of my coworkers, I feel frustrated and unable to speak sometimes because that's so hurtful to me. And I deliberately try not to hurt you. And you just stop. People will be like, and the most common thing they will say to you is, why haven't you told me that before? And you will probably say, I told you that a million times. And they'll say, I've never heard you say that. And that's totally true. They've never heard it because we tend to let our own words get in the way. We say tons of extra stuff that does not belong in our message. So I hope
I think you're hitting a lot of people's concerns. For example, our other friend Jennifer blanks out too. Cool Breeze has the same problem.
Hey, Cool Breeze.
Kathy.
Oh, good.
Same issue.
I'm glad we get to talk about. Tell me, Mark. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it. I mean, I know Kathy's feeling at 2 a.m. You wake up and you're like, that.
Yes. Yes. Where you wake up. Oh, that's what I should have said. Now, by the way, don't be hard on yourself because you have emotions. Remember, there's a lot of controversy these days about exactly what lives in which side of the brain. For many years, they were very clear, the brain community, saying, I don't have these machines at home, so I can't make these studies and figure this out myself. But they were very clear about how the left-hand side of the brain was logic and the right-hand side of the brain was emotion. And now they're saying, oh, that's not true. There's stuff that lives in different parts of the brain and it's kind of mixed up. I don't know, but what I do know and what the research still clearly shows is that language lives in the left-hand side of the brain. That's not disputed at all. And all of the other stuff is in a different part of the brain from where our language lives because it has its own home. And when we activate part of the brain, like the right-hand side or a different area, that deactivates in most of us the rest of the brain. And so if I'm being very emotional and somebody just pushed my buttons and now I'm thinking about a trauma that I've gone through, or, like I'm opening up a sacred wound of my brother's by, talking about, his, I don't even think of anything, but
you can think of something fast. Come on.
when you are emotionally hit by somebody, that will naturally draw you out of the part of the brain where your language lives. That's just the way it is. That's why when we are at an ATM machine, all my banks get really mad at me because I'm not supposed to write my PIN number on the back of the card with the Sharpie. And so I'm supposed to remember that. And so if you've ever done that, you'll go to the ATM machine and you'll put the card in and you'll be like, oh, rats, I don't remember it. And so the more you stress out about it, the more you are drawn away from that memory. And then you'll remember it sometime when you don't even care because you're not stressed. There's no emotion drawing you out of that part of the brain. which is, we talk about in the course coming up, by the way, there are exercises that you can do to try and synchronize your brain. Again, I don't have these machines at home, but I do know it makes a difference in my life. And it is used in different types of therapy when you try to hemisphere synchronize, which is like, Marty, go like this. Go like Marty. Okay, so now go like this.
Right.
Okay, so now do this. Oh, Marty's pretty good. Okay, now do this. Do it again. Okay, and so just do like this for a minute. Go, hiya, hiya. Do that, okay? Everybody do that. Okay, now when you do that, if right now you're getting all palsied, and you're like, oh, my hands don't do that. It's not the tendons in your hands. It's your brain has not yet formed the fibers that do that. So if you do that for a few minutes a day, it starts to get easier and easier. And then all of a sudden it's easy. So you want to do opposite hands, for example, if you just want to do real easy brain exercises where you just do that. And if you do that, what that supposedly does is forces your brain to create new fibers that were not there before, which is evidenced by the fact that we can do that after having not been able to do it previously. And the reason and there's also different exercises, you can do, like, you try this, Mark, try this. Okay. Take like a pen or something in your left hand. Marty's a lefty, which I think means he's, he has less capacity, basically. Okay. So do this. Okay. Go in a clockwise motion.
Clockwise.
Yes. Like if you were looking down at it. Okay. And now take your right hand. Okay. And take another pen and go in a counterclockwise motion, not at the same time, but just, do that. Okay. Above it.
Above it.
Above it. Like do this. Like if you're making a circle on a plate that's in your lap.
Yes.
No. Yes. Point down.
I'm pointing down.
Okay.
Wait, now I got to go counterclockwise. Here's counterclockwise. Counterclockwise.
No. Counterclockwise is your left hand.
Counterclockwise.
No. I'm sorry. Clockwise is your left hand. It doesn't matter. But clockwise is your left hand. And then your right hand.
We're going to turn back time.
It would be the
opposite. That's Celine Dion?
You'd want to make the same size circle, just in opposite directions. I can't do that. I mean, so if you can, congratulations. Maybe you can because you have that deficiency in your brain. But anyway, that would help you as well.
Okay. Are you saying that's in the program, or is that just to make me look?
It usually is. I had not thought of adding it, but I now am thinking of it because I think.
See, all I'm doing is I'm just making you work more.
No, that's good. I have not. It's in pre-registration, so the curriculum has not yet been set. It's going to be set by those who take the course in the pre-registration, and there's a timeline where basically in about a week we're having a live meetup, and we're all going to discuss what we've contributed so far and what I think the course should be. And then based on the feedback, I'm going to take things out, modify it. And then the actual course will be released to the public a few weeks after that, let's say. And it will be modified actually as it's dripped out in 5 lessons, like every 3 days. And what was I going to say? Oh, you get $200 off if you do the pre-registration thing, which I think is it's a hell of a deal because you get to participate in live training and you get to collaborate. And some people, if you're a inner circle member, Mart, you were talking about gamification and things like that. Eamon was. Marty's son is Eamon.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the new course, I don't know how to work it. So maybe somebody does and can help me out. It has gamification things built in and people can become like leaders. No. What do you call that? Ambassadors and like heads.
Why don't we do this? You could leave a comment here and we can get in touch with you because all you're doing right now is exposing your age. And I want to get to another question. So hold on a second. So anybody here who knows anything about gamification besides my 22-year-old son?
The point is there are challenges and there's gamification stuff where people can, if they want to, earn spots in upcoming videos where they can actually be in them if they want to, or just give their ideas. And then I would do a video on that. But there's it's very flexible. I'm trying to be as flexible as I can. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, here we go. New question. This is from Sarah, but let's just make sure it's all on there. It is. There you go. Check it out from Sarah online.
Sarah.
On the screen.
Okay. What if your coworker is always haughty, condescending, demeaning, and arrogant towards others? Okay. Just ignore or use reverse psychology by admiring the other coworkers that they are not condescending. You know what I have found? When people engage in the behavior that bothers us, we tend to want to do the opposite and show them. For example, if Marty wants to be very special, let's say Marty wants to be in charge of everything. It tends to be my ego's instinct to say and do things that will show him, you are not in charge. You are not the boss of me. If he wants to be, known as special, I want to, in my ego, delusion, I want to show him he's not so special. But that's insanity. And what I would want to do, I think, in this situation, for example, could you put that question up again, Mart?
Yep.
Not that that's what you were doing, Sarah, but okay, she's haughty and condescending and demeaning and arrogant for others. Okay. Should you just ignore it? Okay. What I suggest you do is this. Now, we all know the basics of when people behave that way, it's because they really are feeling the opposite. They're feeling right. I mean, that's the way it is. They don't really feel as though they are on the same level. So they try to overcompensate by acting that way. Now, that's really easy to say, but it gets super annoying when you're dealing with those people, right? So what I would want to do is, if you want to solve this problem, I mean, we don't need to take it on as yours, but if it's coming up and you're noticing it, it's being brought up in you for a reason, I believe. So it's something you probably want to work through, or you're going to keep dealing with this over and over again until you do. So I would recommend finding out more about this person and trying to figure out what their Enneagram number is, for example. And if you haven't used the Enneagram before, it's what I have found to be the most on target of all of the different personality systems that it can be used in a variety of different ways. Like the nuns used it to guilt people into think they were going to hell. You could use it to be more loving to people. You could use it to strengthen your bond. But really the way I learned it and the way I believe it makes most sense is we all have one sick compulsion that drives us through life. And you want to figure out what other people's compulsion is. And you can do that by learning to interpret the signs that people send when they don't even know that they're sending them. And when you can do that and figure out, oh, look, that's now because of that, I know you're an 8. I know you're a 7, you're a 6, you're a 5. Now you know not just what drives them through life, but you know what their biggest fear is. And you can use that in a variety of different recipes.
But let me just stop for 1 second, Dan.
Okay.
Okay. As somebody who, and this is just on the assumption that Sarah doesn't know the Enneagram.
Well, okay.
No, I'm just putting this out there because what you're talking about a lot today are tactics.
Yep.
If I was coming at you as an arrogant jerk, and you've probably experienced that with me in my life, I won't lie. So if I'm haughty and condescending to you, and maybe Sarah just needs an instant break before we even understand what the Enneagram is and studying it, is there any tactic that you might recommend to her? It's just a tactic of some condescending jerk at work. Because she's also saying, or do I use reverse psychology and just start admiring other coworkers and kind of ignore this person who aren't condescending? Or,
Well, what I have found is successful for me and gets me, I am a very selfish communicator. I like to follow the laws of the universe and do the right thing because I know what it gets me. You know what I mean? I don't claim to be a good person just to be a good person. I just know I know the laws of the universe. And so when I'm dealing with somebody who's arrogant, I know that the law of the universe is if they're insisting on wanting to be recognized as higher than, better than, smarter than, prettier than, whatever it may be. Unless you're dealing with a psychopath, like a narcissist, most people these days are overusing that phrase. So I'm assuming this is not a clinical psychopath, but let's just say that it's somebody who's, just as you were saying, haughty, arrogant. I would want to acknowledge them as, in some way that's not demeaning to myself, but acknowledge them for what they want me to acknowledge them for. If they wanted to show me how smart they were at work, I might find a way that I can say in a legitimate way something such as, wow, you really know your stuff, or you are really good at that. So you are, as I can see, the expert in XYZ. Great. I'll make sure to come to you if I ever need that, whatever. Because not only does that tend to satisfy them so that they will then move along and get unstuck, we all have different forms of the same affliction. And that's what I'm doing as well. And that's what Marty's doing. That's what we all do. We all want to be seen as something. For example, if Marty was accidentally seen as a Nazi, I'm sure you would want to correct that. You would want somebody to see you not as that, but as who you are. And you would want somebody to treat you and the people around you with a certain level of respect and a certain in a certain way. If you don't get that, you're going to be mad and you're going to want to do things to get people to behave in a certain way to you. And we all have different versions of it. So I'd want to think to myself, what do they want? Would it hurt me to give it to them? And would that get me unstuck and create maybe an alliance with Mrs. Haughty, arrogant? Because that cannot usually be negative for me to form more alliances at work, because sometimes I need to fall back on a gang if I'm being ganged up on. So I think that what we want to do first is recognize, what do you really want out of, what do you is. Now, I do agree with you, Marty, by the way. If somebody's just, Craig, what's his name from TC2000? What was his name?
It was something else.
But let's just say that somebody's just over the top, like you can't stand it. Their vibration it's too much for you. Then I would say, absolutely just step aside, go do your thing. I wouldn't want to be hurtful, or say to them, hey, you're just too much for me. Can you just settle down? Because I might be too much for somebody else, and that's too bad for you. So I want to, if you need to ignore it, ignore it. But if you, instead of following whatever your ego may be telling you, just take a different stance and check this one out. One last comment, Marty. Hold on. I know you're thinking, Dan, shut up. I just
want to get through some more questions too.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have an Enneagram at a glance, which is just a one-page PDF that you can use to quickly reference, and it tells you, kind of clues you in on what you can do, what you can't do, what people look like, what they don't look like, what their biggest fear is, and things like that. And ask yourself, what is it about this relationship with this arrogant person that I think is missing? If I could, or they could only do this, everything would be better. Whatever that thing is, that's exactly what you should be doing. And if you did it, you would solve everything.
Okay. And what you were saying, do you have the Enneagram available?
Well, I have what's called the Enneagram at a glance, and it's free.
Yeah.
It's on. I mean, I will include it in my course, but if you,
it's on your site.
I just don't know exactly where. It's.
Well, if it's free,
Marty, would you put it in that if you have time? Will you remind me, or would you put it in the comments here? Because it is.
I think since it's free, it'd be a great hunt. Okay, hold on 1 second here.
No, you can't. I don't think they can find it. I think you have to know what the link is, and I don't know.
Okay. Well, then put the link up. Okay, hold on. We've got another one here from Brad.
Hey, Brad. Oh, hey, Brad. I remember you.
Yeah.
How can you feel confident when working with a fellow manager that constantly stonewalls you throughout the day? Stonewalling is really difficult, because that is some behavior is annoying. Stonewalling is abusive because it starts to really mentally hurt. If they're stonewalling you and they're not, you say good morning to them and they're not saying it back, that's one thing. If I'm asking you questions, hey, how you doing? And you just look at me and ignore me, that's okay. I didn't say that for you. I don't say good morning to you for you. I don't ask you how you're doing for you. So whether you respond or not is irrelevant to me. But if I'm going to be working with you and need information from you and you're not giving it to me, what I recommend you do is choose somebody like that's a neutral party that does not know what you're doing, because you don't want to make this a gang up on type of thing, speaking of ganging up, and bring that person with you or find a situation in which there will be you and another person. So there'll be three of you. When you need to get information from that person, ask it in front of other people, because if they stonewall you in front of other people, now you don't need to worry about making it an issue. That other person, if they're sane, will see what's going on. And then you can address it without having had ratted on them, or you could easily say, well, it was brought up, I didn't say anything, but you did this in front of other people, which will be the case. So have a third party there when you need to get information from them. Otherwise, you should be grateful that they're not talking to you, right?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, okay, so hold on. Let's get to another one here, because I know we've got more than a few here. So let's.
Marty, by the way, if you know anybody who wants to sponsor us with a digital window,
yeah,
that's what we need.
Sounds great. I don't know what that is. Okay, hold on one second. KE's got one.
I have such a hard time standing up for. Yes.
I think very similar to what we've talked about before. There's a theme here tonight.
Yes, it's a big problem with people.
Right.
That is why anybody who has a problem in the moment, I think, in fact, in my intro video, you can. Oh, by the way, that's the scrolling thing at the bottom of the video here. That is the new course, the self-defense kit. I think in my intro, I reference how frustrating it is for most of us when in the moment, when we are starting our training, we tend to think, I've got one for you. And then somebody says something and we're like, oh yeah. And we can't remember the words. And then we're like, we just talked about 20 minutes later, we're like, oh, okay, come on, do it again. That's very common. But one of the only ways to overcome that is the way that I teach the information. And the reason I do it is because I don't know anybody else who does it that way. You have to use repetition. And you have to have your visual cues. And if you do that, you just keep repeating so that it's second nature and part of your regular verbal patterns. It'll come out. You don't have to worry about it. But if you don't worry. It will not come out. So don't expect it to. It's like, Marty, you watch Judge Judy, right?
On TV and in real life.
Yes, I love Judge Judy. And when you see people on any court show, let's say that one of the defendants let's say that the plaintiff is an officer and the defendant is a regular citizen. When the officer talks about how, well, I witnessed the female exit the vehicle and blah, blah, blah. It sounds very natural for them to say that because you can tell they say that all the time. And then you see the other people trying to do that and they'll be like, well, I witnessed the female exit the vehicle too. And you're like, what? That just sounds so bizarre coming out of your mouth because you can just tell what they're doing is they're speaking with an accent. And it's just like any other language. When you don't practice it enough, your accent is so thick, it becomes distracting. And that's what's happening. So you want to practice, and you'll lose your accent. And that means it now sounds natural coming out of your mouth, even if you only speak one language. It's the same process.
Okay. That's okay. Hold on.
Okay. Standing up for myself in the moment.
What? Okay. Did we do it?
Well, that I kind of did, but you know what? Key. I hope I'm saying that right. Also, my friend Elizabeth recently gave me a couple of things that I've been using a lot, and it makes a big difference what's physically going on. For example, if somebody is I don't know where this is happening, but if it's happening at work, let's say, or at home, it doesn't matter. When somebody decides that they're going to push you around, remember your body reflects your mind and your words reflect those. And just like our thoughts affect our speech patterns, your speech patterns affect your thoughts. I mean, everything goes in reverse as well. So if, for example, I'm thinking negative thoughts, if I start speaking positive words, it actually will change my thought patterns to more positive ones and vice versa, right? So if I am feeling like unsure of myself and I'm getting, I'm not naturally an aggressive person, which is fine, by the way, and you will never get over that. Like Buddy here, my one dog, is super passive and Maggie is super aggressive because they were born that way. And so she growls at him all the time and he goes and hides in the corner. That's not changing. So you want to learn things to help you work with what you've got and build off of your strengths. Don't try to improve on your weaknesses too much. Just don't waste your time doing that. But
there's a clarifying message for you, Dan.
Okay. Hold on. My boss continue. Oh, okay. Here we go. He brings drama to our meetings and then for team. Okay. Thank you very much, Key. There are two things I would say to that. Could you keep that up there, Mart?
Yeah.
First of all, for everybody, what I was going to say is keep your body, when you're going to stand up for yourself, put your feet flat on the ground. Keep your shoulders back. Keep your chin up. Look people straight in the eye. That alone is going to change the way you feel about the message you're sending. Okay. And keep your head straight. Now, when you're talking about how you are interrupted by your boss and it's in a meeting, and then we'll go, Mark, because I know that you've been very patient today. First of all, that should be an impossibility. So whoever's in charge of your meetings, if this is happening during a meeting, there's something wrong. the reason most people hate meetings so much is because you get a bunch of yahoos in a room who don't have any communication rules or structure. And so it's going to be a big free for all. And if you have a simple set of meeting rules, that what you're discussing here, what you're describing here, should not be possible. For example, there only should be one person allowed to speak. Maybe they hold, if people have a particular problem refraining from interjecting, Marty, remember when you stole that the table thing from the Brazilian steakhouse that it was green and red? Remember that?
Is that what I did? Yes. I remember that really clearly.
Okay. Like if you have one of those things, maybe the baton, the whatever, the what do you call it? The egg timer, the hourglass, like in the Wizard of Oz. If you have it as the rule where the only person who's allowed to speak is the one with the baton, with the stolen Brazilian steakhouse signal, with whatever it is, that should be a rule. It should be a rule that, for example, there's an agenda. It should be a rule that only people who have business in that meeting should be invited to that meeting. There should be a deliberate guest list every time. Otherwise, you're having people who don't want to be there, or people who do want to be there because they're just goofing off, and it's better than being at their desk, but have no purpose there. So if you just look on the internet, I was just looking for a book that I used to use a lot, and I cannot find it. But if anyone has a copy of the Little Black Book of Meeting Rules, it revolutionized the way that I saw meetings and could conduct them when it was my turn to do that. But in a meeting, if these things are going on, there is absolutely no way to stop it until you implement meeting rules. Then there is absolutely no way this should happen. In terms of interrupting, there's a real simple 3-step process, speaking of Judge Judy, that you might want to start practicing. And that is, well, first of all, just remember this, you're the only female. Okay. So, how other people, I'm telling you this because most of us won't stand up for ourselves as much as we would stand up for my grandmother. And when I need a little extra help being assertive, for example, if I'm at work, I think to myself, if somebody were interrupting me, oh no, you are not trying to steal my grandmother's place from this table. Do you know how hard she worked so that all of her grandkids could go to college and then be at this table? What do you have against my grandmother? You don't know her. She didn't do anything to you. What do you have against her? What's your problem? So I'll think that in my brain so that I can say, okay, that's it. If I can't stand up for myself, I'm going to honor my grandmother instead of dishonoring her by being the next doormat at work and not making, not realizing the fruits of all of her sacrifices, So think about that. And then now that I've thought about that and I think, okay, if I can't do it for me, I'm going to do it for grandma. My voice is not a singular voice, but I am speaking for all of the people who went before me when I tell you, Mr. Bothman, that you're going to shut up. So here's the 3-step process to do that. Marty, you know the 3-step process. Judge Judy, what does she do? No, I'm not saying that she communicates with tact and finesse. You don't interrupt her, right? I mean, that doesn't happen.
That's right.
So what does she do?
Tells you to shut up. I don't know.
You have to channel mom. Okay. So if you're talking.
Oh, okay. I can do that. You get everything, Marty.
Okay. Here's how you will see, not just Judge Judy, but there was a study done, Marty. You probably know this because, you studied women's lib. When you look at women at work, the women who are interrupted are generally entry-level women, and the managers on every study that I've just recently had to look into this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's striking how the average woman is interrupted frequently at work. The average manager woman, or in a higher position, interrupts 3 times more than a man would, because they've learned that that's what they have to do to try to make their way, and to actually have a voice. So when you want to stop somebody from interrupting you, first of all, you have to remember that body language in this case is key. So you want to make sure that you are facing them, and you want to use a stop gesture. And the universal stop gesture, which you don't need to learn if you were in a cave your whole life and then saw your first human and they went,
I know
like
it is. Oh, Sorry, I
Yeah,
was just gonna
like
do
that.
Oh, okay,
That is a stop gesture. Okay. Now, Judge Judy, you will see, she gives you a karate chop, but she'll say, here's what she does. She'll say, I'm speaking. And that's it. You have to use a stop gesture. You have to use wide eyes and tilt your head forward and use a anti-interrupter statement. You have two choices. I'm speaking or I'm still speaking. All that other crap that people say. What is the most common thing that people say when other people interrupt them? What's the most common thing out of the mouth? And I bet, excuse me. And so I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Or you'll hear people like
moment, please. Moment.
Yeah. Because if you could just let me finish, I'll give you a chance as soon as I'm done. Where was it, Marty? It was just on. Oh God. There's a new woman. She's from, I think, Minneapolis. I think she's from Minnesota. She's gorgeous. And she has, I don't know where she's from or how she learned to talk the way that she does, but when she talks, she's a lawyer, and I don't know if she went to Harvard or something, but she's so funny and just direct and to the point. And is the way that she speaks, it tells a story in a sentence that clarifies all of the stuff that's going on there and makes the people who should feel really silly. But anyway, if you try to interrupt her, all she'll do is say, I'm speaking. And then if you keep going, she'll be, I'm still speaking. And she'll just keep saying it. Hey, if you need to, by the way, you have to have props at work. You have to. And there's a reason why you have props, because if you have a Mont Blanc pen, Marty, like you remember, we used to always carry those. Mont Blanc pens. Do you have one there?
I'll look for it.
Okay.
Okay. I also want to let you know we're 47 minutes into it.
Well, we're just 25 minutes over. Okay. So let's say if you have the Mont Blanc pen in your hand, and by the way, you have to do this or you have to relinquish the floor. Now, if somebody interrupts you and just starts going and you say, John, I'm speaking, John, and they just keep talking, remember, John. Because if you do that to anybody, you just keep repeating their name, they will eventually say, what? And then you say, I'm speaking. And then you keep going. But if you're of a lighter voice, you're not breaking through, take your Mont Blanc pen, or you could use a cross pen. They just won't last as long. But something with a big metal tip. John, I'm speaking. They will shut up. And then you can say, all right. And do not say thank you. If they say something such as, all right, go ahead. Don't say thank you. If somebody robs you, like the Hamburglar, and you find them snooping out of your house, and you see them with your things, you're not going to say, oh, thank you, when they give them back. You're going to say, give me that. So when somebody is interrupting you, and you say, John, I'm speaking, and they say, okay, fine, go ahead. I will go ahead. I'm speaking. And then, as I was saying, and you just keep going. So all that other garbage about how you can have your turn, they can figure that out. I'm speaking, John. So do that. And if you do that, I swear, everybody who's watching you, Key, what was her name?
Yep. K-E.
They will be like, oh, there's the new CEO. There's the new president. There's the new, soon to walk out of the company and give the whole, what was that movie where they're like, I like you. You're cool. What was that movie?
Oh, that was with Dave Chappelle. Oh my God. Yes. Okay. I'll know that one in 2 seconds.
So
that was great.
Like when you do that, you are putting your stake in the ground, and you are saying, just so y'all know, this is who I am from now on. And it's they'll be like, geez, did you see her? Oh, did you see? But total respect in like an instant. And all you're doing is telling people, hey, I'm speaking. Don't do that. Now, of course, if you're talking, most people, when they interrupt us, it's because they're interested in what we're saying. They're engaged. They can't help themselves. And we interrupt each other all the time, and that's natural and it's normal. But when they're doing it deliberately to try to steal the floor or put themselves above you, do not let that happen. What movie was it, Mark?
And K-E is Crystal.
Hey, Crystal.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's good. I think we have time for just one more. And Dan, I know that this was really also us speaking a little bit to your newest program. So I just want to know, most of the things we're talking about are in that?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I had not.
Because we're defining it as we go.
Exactly.
Okay. So
So
that's
I
great.
tend to take what people are talking about in the moment. But yeah, remember, check out that link here at the bottom. And by the way, if you are an Inner Circle member, remember, you get access. I've taken most of my courses off the market, but they're just as good as they ever were. And they're only available in the vault. You only have access to that in the Inner Circle, and you get 3 personal one-on-one coaching sessions. So if you get a year Inner Circle, if you get if you get it month to month, it's only like $95, and you get everything but the coaching, and you could still attend some of our new classes, unless like if one of the episodes is a month from, a month and a day after you got your membership, you'd have to get it for 2 months to see all of the modules. Were you saying something, Mark?
Let's wrap this up with Samantha.
Hey, Samantha, any suggestions for what to say when responding to feedback? Yeah. Or instructions from my supervisor. I always say sounds great or a version of that, and I need to find a different response. Yeah.
I get it.
What?
I get it. Yeah. I get it. Like after a while, you're like, you need something else in this. Yes.
Yes. What I am a big believer in responding well to feedback, because that was always one of the things on our evaluations, right? And so if you have the ability to get all 10s, mark check all the boxes. So when somebody gives you feedback at work, there is a 3-step process that I like to use, because it's going to make you be that person who responds well to feedback, and everyone will label you as, oh my God, they're so good to give feedback to. So step number 1 is to say, to listen, of course. And then no matter what they say, no matter how bizarre or outrageous it is, or even if they're wrong, say, all right, let me see if I understand this correctly. And you repeat it back to them. So I have been doing A, I should be doing B. Is that correct? And then they'll say yeah or no. And then they'll repeat themselves if you were not correct. And then you say, all right, you want to clarify step number 2, the outcome. So again, now that I got what you want me to do straight, if I do that, I will get XYZ. I will be more productive. I will help more customers. I should see this number go up. I should see whatever it may be. That's correct. And then they'll say, yep. And then you say, great, thank you. Please, not, is there anything else I should know, but tell me, what other tips like that do you have? What else can you tell me? What other feedback do you have for me? I'm all ears. I love this stuff, because, and you want to give the impression, anything positive you tell me, that's great, but it's useless for me. I already know what I do well. People tell me what I do well, and that does not serve me at all. The only thing that serves me is when people tell me what I'm doing wrong and when they give me negative feedback. So I'm totally more than open to it. I beg you for it. And as much as you can pile on, give it to me. So if you do that, and then, you go and check back with them later on, you will just be, because there's not a whole lot you can say besides that. But if you go through that process, what you will find is you'll turn pieces of feedback into a conversation, and they'll be so delighted that finally somebody can take feedback, even when they don't say it right, and they don't, use a sandwich, or they don't, use an LBNT. If you can take it however they want to give it, you'll just be so star, team member. So that's all. Step number 1, let me clarify this. Is this what you're saying? Number 2, is that what I will get? And number 3, thank you for that. Do you have more? Oh, by the way, one last thing, Mark, 'cause I know I tend to go on. If you do not agree with their feedback, like if I'm saying, I am painting your bathroom blue because it's going to make it look bigger, and they come in and they say, wait a minute. No, paint it white. It will look better. You may want to use a solution-focused question that sounds like this. If I can show you XYZ, would you be then willing to ABC? For example, if I can show you the data that clearly shows that I will make more money and spend less time doing it this way, would you then be willing to consider this proposal? Or would you be willing to consider allowing me to do it this way? And that gives them the opportunity to say no. And okay, then I'll do it the way you want. But if you know that you're right, and you say, somebody, even if you're giving a speech and they say, hey, your product stinks, that sounds like a lot of work. If I could show you that using our product will not only save you work, but save you time and money in the long run, would you then be willing to at least hear me out? They would have to be a total jerk to say, no, I won't. So, that if I can show you this, would you be willing to that, is a great response when you need to pull that rabbit out of your hat.
Okay. And I'm going to do one more, because one more question did pop in. So we're going to do it in under 1 minute. So here you go. This is your, the 60-second challenge. Here we go.
Okay. When my supervisor has favorites that don't, my supervisor has favorites that don't do work in meetings, give you an idea and her favorite, chime along and get the credit.
I think they're basically saying what happens when the suck up that you gave an idea to gets the credit for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know you know this one. So you've got 60 seconds to address it.
Okay.
And if people want more information, I put my email up there, which is Martin@Dan O'Connor Training. And I know that you'll do something here in the comment section.
Okay.
It's not hard to get anyway.
Okay. Could you put?
And so if you email me and you decide to do something, we'll do something special for you with Dan's new program.
Let's post in the comments too the resources that I told I would, the Enneagram at a glance. Okay. Yeah, I want to remember that.
Now you forgot the question.
Oh, no, I
so
didn't.
Here you go.
I did not.
Okay, go.
Okay, so
60 seconds or less.
I have to remember the last person to speak on an idea tends to own that idea or get the credit for that process or whatever it may be. So if somebody is deliberately, I'm going to assume they're not deliberately trying to take credit for your idea. They're just talking about it. They might have said, so-and-so did a great job on that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, no.
They're doing it deliberately.
Okay, if they're doing it deliberetely,
yeah,
I would like to wait before the meeting ends. I want to be the last one to speak on that. The last one. So I would say something like, John, I noticed that you mentioned the project that I worked on, and I really appreciate you supporting me in that and telling everybody about that. I enjoyed working on it. So thanks a lot. And I want to have the last voice, and I'm going to thank that person. And now, by the way, if they are saying like they worked on it, pretend this. Okay, this is helps me when I need to call people out on a total lie. If they're saying, for example, yeah, Dan and I worked on that all night last night when they went out to the bar and left me working on it, then I would want to be like, pretend you are at a diner and you ordered a BLT and the waitress gives you a fish sandwich. You wouldn't be like, because a lot of people try to play games. They'll be like, gee, John, I don't remember you working on it. You wouldn't say to the server, gee, I don't remember ordering a fish sandwich. You'd be like, oh no, that's not mine. I got a BLT. So if John says that you two were working on it, that he did it, no, John, that was my project. No, I worked on that alone. You must be thinking of something else. And you don't make it a big deal. You're just like, oh, John, you must be confused. Hello, have another cup of coffee. So it's not a big deal. I'm just correcting you. No, that I worked on that all by myself. You must be thinking of something else. Tell people that if it's important to you. But otherwise, if it's my boss, wait a minute. You said this is the favorite of your boss. Okay. In that case, then make sure you always have the last voice when speaking about an idea, if they are not outright stealing credit for it. And if they outright do, correct them. I'm going to assume I always have to assume, and this will help me get my tone right. Everybody here is doing the best they can and telling the truth. So poor idea stealer or, work credit stealer over there, they're just delusional. Maybe they're on some hallucinogens. Maybe they had a brain injury and they don't know. And so I'm just going to, gently remind them, oh, John, you did not do that. That's the one that I did. You must be thinking of something else. Hey, I work here and get paid for that stuff. And so if people aren't thinking I'm doing it, I'm not going to let them think that if that will somehow affect me in my career. If it does not affect me, oh, who cares? Yeah, John, yep, you did that. You clean toilets all night long. You're the expert toilet cleaner. If it doesn't matter. But if it matters, then yeah, just correct them. They don't know. They think they did it.
It was deliberately. See?
Right. I'm assuming it is deliberately, but what I'm saying is,
I know.
I know.
I'm just saying.
No, and by the way,
yes.
Right? Like if they're doing it deliberately, as you say, and I believe you, that just is such an what do you call it? Not
petty.
It's disarming. It's very disarming when somebody like, what was her name, Marty?
Oh, well, I'm going to say it wrong.
Oh,
Althea.
Althea.
So
okay, so like Althea, if Althea just very calmly and just matter of factly says, "Oh no, John, you didn't work on that. That's what I did." Remember that? Nobody would think a thing of it. Now, if you were to say, "Hey, I worked on that, not you, you liar," then it becomes an issue that it did not need to be. So I believe that when people say things very frank, like, "Oh, I'm assuming you're doing the best you can. You're just hallucinating. So I'm going to clarify things." It works out. It does work out. We tend to make too much of a big deal out of things, Marty.
Yeah. Okay. You've got 15 seconds to say goodbye.
What? I don't have any time. I'm already 10 minutes over, 20 minutes
You have
Half hour
15
over.
seconds to say goodbye because we're at an hour and 8 seconds.
Okay. Remember to stop by our new course, the self-defense kit with dashes in there, danoconnontraining.com. And check that out. You get $200 off during the pre-registrations
Hi, Lizzie.
time. Hi, Lizzie. And you know what, everybody? Remember, Marty, who are you with tonight?
Your brother, my brother, Dan.
No, who are you with at home?
Oh, Michelle and Eamon.
Michelle and Eamon. Remember, tell them you love them because you're very grateful to be with, you're very lucky to be with them. And there's nothing you have to say to them. And there's nothing we have to say to anybody that we can't say in a loving way. So if you need any help saying things in a loving way, but Marty, you know, as the great Nazareth has said, sometimes love hurts. So sometimes it might not feel that way.
Nazareth the band?
Yeah. Love hurts.
Oh, okay. Great.
So might not always appear to be loving, but speak loving words to the people that you love. And if you need any help, that's what Marty and I are here for.
That's right.
Bye, guys.
I'm like
I'm gonna
Robin.
put some loving on my
Okay.
loving Everson's here. Goodbye. Oh, I have to hang up. Stop by our website and become a member or an inner circle member while I find the button here. Goodbye.